And you're listening to WBAI here in New York City. As you can see, we're covering a wide range of topics now. WBAI has a long history, and I think the next segment of our show has to be a first. The only thing I can think of is maybe Bob Fast in the 60s might have had something like this. But, Corey, do you want to set it up, or we're just going into it?
Well, let me just say that we have now in the studio with us Natalia Paruz, the Saw Lady. And she's going to take it away with a little bit of music, and we're going to come back and talk to her about playing the saw. Yeah. The Saw Lady. Way to go. The WBAI 99.5. Only on WBAI will you be hearing live Saw music. And Natalia Paruz, thank you for coming in and starting it off with that song. Well, what do you call that? I mean, were you just extemporizing, or is this one of your songs, or whose is this?
This is actually an Israeli song.
Yeah.
But it just has a beautiful melody. So.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So, yes, so I see you brought in your amplifier, and you do play with a little bit of recorded, pre-recorded accompaniment music. We don't have a pianist in here, lest anyone think that Malachi jumped on the ivories. We can barely fit a saw in here. I mean, much less, playing it and bending it the way you do. And I think it would be nice to start out by just kind of painting the picture for listeners that, the playing the saw. Now, this one has no teeth. This isn't, you started out by playing literally wood cutting saws, tools that you bought from the hardware store, right. And then eventually moved on to this instrument custom made for you for music, right?
That's right. Any saw plays. If you have a handsaw in your toolbox, you don't have to do anything to it.
Why is that? Why does a saw play? I mean, how does it make music?
It's the vibrations of the metal. Basically, it's a chunk of metal, right?
Yeah.
And much like a gong or a bell, if you hit it, the sound comes out. So it's the same thing. If you were to hit it with a mallet, a sound would come out just like with a bell. Yeah. But what we're doing with the saw, because it is flexible, we can bend it. So when you bend it, you bend the pitch.
I see.
And because of the shape of the blade, because it's narrower on one end than the other end, because of that, you have the degradation of the different notes.
I see.
As you're bending it, you're causing less metal to vibrate, and hence
right.
higher
the
the
way
pitch.
If you lift the lid of a piano and you have the small little strings being the high end of the,
Exactly.
Right. And I obviously, you're using a bow. I guess it's a cello bow, right?
This one
looks
is
like a fairy wand over there. What is this? Is it sparkling? I mean, it's like a princess bow or something.
Yeah, I just wrapped it with sparkling paper to match the blade.
I see.
But any bow,
right, it's presentation, right? Half of this
Yeah,
stuff. Come
yeah.
on, right? I mean, you're playing in the subway. This is people. When I say people, I won't say people pleasing, but I mean you are playing for tips, and people are really drawn to this. As testifying as somebody who's hung around for a while watching you play. I mean, people really do stop. They pull the earbuds out. They take the headphones off. They let the train go that they're trying to catch. A lot of people and they stop, and you do draw a crowd a lot of times, and they're taking videos and pictures, and they were asking you what it's all about, and some of them haven't never seen this. And
right, the saw does have a very mesmerizing and relaxing type of sound, kind of angelic. So it's a juxtaposition to the stress that people feel in the subway. And it's true that a lot of people have never heard a saw before, and so their curiosity is sparked. And for me, playing the saw in the subway, the music is more of an excuse for interaction, for meeting people and getting people to interact with me and with one another. So it's all about communication for me, really.
Right. And I mean, you have the people who asking, what it's all about, and they've never seen it before. And then you had, like you mentioned, you have people who they have a little something to add. They have some Saw lore, and whether someone they knew, or their father, or their whoever it was played it. Or you mentioned there's a whole tradition of it being played somehow in church, and some
the passengers in the subway are my local historians. I have learned so much about the history of the musical Saw from just people passing by and stopping to tell me, oh, my grandfather played the Saw, my uncle played the Saw, my priest back home in South America played the Saw. And that's how I learned just by oral history. And one of the interesting things that I learned, and I later confirmed it with old newspaper clippings, is that indeed 100 years ago and before, saws were used by priests and missionaries to lead their congregations in the singing of hymns. It started because back then, taking stuff with them as they traveled the world, taking stuff with them over the boat was difficult. They couldn't carry a piano with them or even smaller instruments. But hand saws everybody had because they needed to build a church at their destination. Mm-hmm. So they used what they had to teach the locals the melodies of the hymns. And I found old obituaries in newspapers from 100 years ago and before stating that Reverend so-and-so used to play the saw, leading the congregation in the singing of hymns.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So, I mean, you have amazing stories, but I do just want to also mention, how the configuration here is that I can see you're holding the lower end, the wider end, where you would put your hand on the handle when you're sawing wood, if this were a saw with the teeth. You're holding that between your knees, between your legs, and you're bowing it with your right hand like a cellist would bow, and on your left hand is up by the top of the saw, bending it. So it is almost like a cellist or meets a guitar player kind of posture of when you're playing this thing. And I love the way that when you play with such joy, visible joy, and even like with each phrase, it's kind of a flourish with the bow and with the bending of the saw, where you're kind of I think of it as almost like Hendrix or a heavy metal guitar player, where it's like every phrase is punctuated with a physical exaltation or whatever,
Right. The saw is a very physical instrument, unlike a cello or a violin or whatever else is being played with a bow, where only the bow moves, but the body of the instrument is stationary. With the saw, the bow moves, but the entire blade moves as you're playing it. So it's very physical. You are bending steel. It's actually like a workout.
Is it a workout? Can you play it for hours, or do you have to?
I envy guitar players who can play for 8 hours, no problem. I did play for 8 hours once, but then I couldn't play for a whole week because it is bending steel.
Were you setting a world record? What were you doing?
No, I was just having fun.
You were making money. No. Is it lucrative, or do those days, the busking days, are they still good, or does it go up in the economy, or what is it?
Unfortunately, it's really, you can feel the economy all the way down to busking. When the economy was great, busking was great. Today, unfortunately, not so great. But there are a lot of factors that factor into this. Up until the dot-com bubble burst, busking was amazing.
You mean like have Wall Street guys dropping hundreds on you, or what do you mean amazing? Like everyone would be throwing change in, or
first of all, everyone would be. More people would be throwing change in, and I'll tell you in a minute why today they're not. But yes, back then actually giving like big chunks of money was not so unusual, and we have a saying in buskers lore: when one person gives you a $100 bill, we call it an Oscar award. So when a busker says, "I got the Oscar," that means somebody, one person.
Has that happened?
Yeah, it has.
It has.
Yeah, but
what
not
was it?
anymore.
I mean,
Unfortunately.
how did it happen? I mean, I'm just curious. Was it did it look like a rich person, or was it someone who played their wedding song? I mean, what
A
was
lot
the
of times I
context?
don't even know who the person is because I'm not looking at what I don't really see how much people put
I
in
see.
when they
Right,
put
it could be
in.
$1. It could be right.
Yeah.
It's not like the person looked at you like, "Huh? I just gave you 100."
No.
Okay.
But things have changed tremendously. Not just the economy tanked, which was a great influence, and then 9/11 happened, and but stuff changed, such as technology. For example, today, not that many people carry change with them because people pay not only with credit cards, but today with their phones.
Right.
So a lot of people, they come to me and they actually tell me, "I love what you do, but I'm sorry, I don't have anything on me."
Yeah. Young people, right? Let's be real here. Yeah.
So that contributes. And another thing that changed is, buskers all sell their music on CDs. And today I have people come to me and say, "I love your music, but I don't have a CD player."
Right.
So
We've moved past CDs.
Well, they're taking them out of the cars now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they're
the only
starting to
place
do
I
that.
have
They're
one.
getting rid of them on that. I see one of the problems that you do have, and it came up here, and it's how you transport the instrument. You transport it with a Remington rifle carrying case.
That is
Now,
true.
Through what? Through customs? Through the subway and airports?
Yes, it is the only case I could find that
Couldn't you put some
fits.
duct tape over the Remington part? I mean, this is like.
Well, no, actually, I do put a plastic bag over it so that it won't be so, so people
Does it
won't
help
see
you
it
with
again.
conservative listeners? I mean, with
Well, I have to say,
the rifle case?
I get a lot of respect on the street.
There you go. The C's part.
Second Amendment.
But yes, it is the only case that I could find that would fit the shape of the saw. And when I take the saw through airports, it can be a problem. I'm oftentimes stopped and they don't understand what it is.
Unless they
And-
recognize you.
Yes, that did happen at JFK.
You gotta love that.
I was standing in line waiting for the x-ray machine, and I was thinking, "Oh, my God, not again, the whole thing is going to start now with the questions." As I got to the machine, the lady operating it took one look at me, and she said, "Saw lady, I see you in the subway all the time. Oh, my God." And she turned around and told all the other people who worked there, "This is Saw lady." They didn't even x-ray my suitcases. They just let me through. I felt
That's
like
so
a
reassuring.
queen.
I'm gonna start carrying a saw. That's the ticket, huh? Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
How about the teeth? Your saw is toothless.
It's been defanged.
It is toothless today, yes. And this is not for music, but because I was playing at Times Square and a police officer gave me a ticket for $150 saying that the teeth are a weapon and I cannot have them in a public space. And I said to the officer, I'm sitting down, the teeth face me, so if anybody should get hurt, it should be me, and I've never gotten
Right.
hurt
Well,
in
she
20
was
years.
protecting you from yourself.
But she said, "No, you never know when a crazy person might come, snatch the saw away from you, and start waving it around." Well, let me tell you, I've been playing for 20 years. Nobody has ever tried to snatch the saw away from me. But
But they have tried to steal some money, or have you ever had people grabbing money?
fortunately, not that often. But yes, it does happen every once in a while. One time, this lady who I actually know that she used to work as a pickpocket in the subway. She pretended like she was gonna give me money, but instead she crouched down, grabbed money, and ran. So
That's so unpickpocket-like, I have to say, though. I mean, that's not too subtle where you're like kind of, you roust the person next to you on the subway. and-
Right.
I mean, she grabs it from a bucket and runs.
But I guess she thought that I won't have anything to do about it because I'm
See,
sitting
now
down.
that
with
is
my-
one time the teeth would have came in handy.
Exactly. That would have teeth.
Well, what happened with the teeth? I mean, how did you?
Well, you can grind them. You can take them to a metal shop, and they
Yeah.
will just get rid of them. I went to a guy who actually could do that, but he said to me, "Yeah, I can do that, but why don't you just keep this saw and let me just make you a saw without teeth?" So that's how I got this.
Oh,
this
I
saw.
see. So, so the teeth can be reduced in a metal shop. Yeah?
They can very easily, and it does not affect the
Bloody
sound.
Stupid, that whole bloody thing, isn't it? My
Well, what
God.
can you do? You can't argue with the police.
And did you have to pay $150 fine?
I did. Yes, I tried to contest it,
Yeah.
but
In
the
quarters. Right? You just dump the bucket right on the...
Not to put a tooth in it. So you had to pay $150 for carrying what? Exhibiting a dangerous weapon in public?
Yes.
So that's what we get for weapons, $150? Like, you can become a 9mm, I'll get a ticket in Times Square?
Well, I don't understand. What was the charge? Brandishing a weapon or
Having a weapon in public space.
a weapon?
Yeah.
And I imagine you would have to search the law books to find that a saw is a weapon, or is anything a weapon if it is so designated by
Well, if
the
you
police.
think of it, an umbrella can be a weapon. You can, brandish anything at anybody. And
Your tongue can be a weapon.
Right.
that is true.
Yeah. I mean, you should have just gone in the courtroom with you would have pleaded your case with the saw. It would have been dynamite, right?
Oh, my God.
Judge.
The People's Court would have loved
May
that
I plug
one.
in this amplifier, Judge?
Threaten the judge with the saw, with the bow. Anything could be a weapon. Very, very strange.
Right, but mention the first few. I mean, how did you get your first few instruments? Because you had told me that you first. Well, I think we should go. First, we should go back to how you even started the saw. We can go in a second because John's a cab driver, so this has a certain. When he saw how you got into doing this the original way when you were a teenager, it kind of resonated with him in a certain way. But just while we're on the instrument question, like, so your first few.
Part-time.
Yeah.
Cab driving is part-time for John.
Yeah.
He's an artist.
He's an artist.
Yeah.
Right. He's
Let
a
me just
cab
say-
dravist.
Some artists.
Right.
Let me just say that I think that being a cab driver and being a busker have a lot in common because we both sit in one place and we have the privileges of a host or hostess without the bother of and the cost of entertaining because we sit and a lot of people come and go. Some of them are friends, but a lot of are strangers and interesting. And we get to meet so many different people and hear so many stories, right?
But that's coming to an end because you're talking about technology, people not having coins. People get in the cab now, they're on the phone. They don't want to know you. And particularly with Uber, you put in the address where you're going, where you picked up. You literally have no communication with the driver, and the money is taken out from your bank account into his bank account. So there's no interaction with money. There's no interaction talking. You don't have to give the address where you're going.
That's
So
terrible
it's-
what the world is getting to.
John, maybe you should pick up the saw.
Yeah, I know. Well, I better
know?
do something now. Holy Jesus. So what happened? You got hit by a yellow cab.
Yes, that's true. I was coming back from Lincoln Center, and I was
Wait, what? Tell the whole thing. You came to New York as a teenager, right?
Right.
From where?
I was born in Israel, but my parents traveled a lot, so I got to live in many different countries around
Your
Europe.
mother was a classical pianist.
She
Your
was.
father was a metal engineer, metallurgist, thus the musical saw.
Right, I'm the mean between the music and the metallurgy.
Heavy metal.
Heavy metal,
Right,
that's
okay.
right.
Eminem.
So when we came, first I went to the Alvin Ailey School for Dance, and then I got to be a trainee with the Martha Graham Dance Company. And that was my life, dance.
You're going to be a star. Right. Okay.
I was, breathing, sleeping, eating dance. That was all I ever wanted to do. But one day I was, as I said, coming back from Lincoln Center, and I was crossing Central Park South, and I was hit by a taxi cab. And that was the end of my dance career because I suffer an injury to my upper spine. Which I'm very fortunate. I can walk, I can even run, but I cannot dance because I lost motion in my neck and my upper back. So of course I was devastated. I was, the one thing that I loved, my life's love was taken away. Yeah, just like that. And I didn't know what to do with my life. So my parents wanted to cheer me up, and so they took me on a trip to Austria because that's where the movie The Sound of Music was filmed, and that was my favorite movie when I was a kid. So we went to see the places where it was filmed, and they were right, they cheered me up. But what happened was we went to see a show for tourists in Austria, and part of it was a guy playing a saw. And it was the first time that I've ever encountered this art form. And I was mesmerized, yes, by the angelic sound, and yeah, I thought it's cool that it's a saw, but those were not the things that actually captivated me. What I noticed was that when you play the instrument, the entire instrument moves, like I was explaining before, and it's very visual, and it creates like wave-like shapes in the air, and it's like dance. So that's why, for the first time since the accident, I felt like, this is something that I want to do. And I wasn't thinking professionally, I was just thinking as a hobby, but it was the one thing that I felt excited about other than dance. So
were your parents excited by you being excited?
At first, they were suspicious. They were, especially my mother, because she said, she was a very traditional musician, and she said, you cannot play an instrument without taking lessons. But the thing was, there was nobody to give lessons. I actually went to the backstage of that show that we were at, and I asked the saw player if he would give me a lesson, and he said no. So I had no choice but to teach myself.
So he wasn't a nice guy.
Oh, it's not that he wasn't a nice guy. Later, when I did my research on the history of the instrument, I discovered that actually, he did me a favor by refusing to teach me, because he enabled me to experience the art form in the old-time traditional way, which is, you see someone playing, like you're seeing me here today, you go home, you pick up your saw, you imitate what you've seen the person do. If you figure it out, it means you are meant to be a saw player.
Wow.
If
you have to go to a crossroads and make a deal with the devil? I mean, this is like really getting into heavy saw lore. Yeah. So I love the way that you kind of reflected on that and said, like, the door closed and the window opened, like the dance thing suddenly was snuffed out. And within a year, you had another passion that you were...
It was amazing. I mean, I did not plan any of this. It just sort of like fell on me. It came to me out of nowhere. And
had a parallel in The Sound of Music, right? With the...
What
is the scene with the nun? Maria's like, "What should I do, Mother?"
Yeah, the Reverend Mother says to her, "That's right." Right before she burst into singing, she said, "When God closes a door, somewhere He opens a window," and that was exactly how I felt when I discovered the musical saw. Just like you can call it God or providence or luck or anything you want to call it, but it came to me. Wow. And I just felt as if like something from above was saying to me, "Oh, you think you're supposed to be a dancer? No, this is what you're supposed to do."
And your first saws came to you how?
The first saw I borrowed from a person who was using it for woodwork.
Is that also part of the tradition? You have to do the borrowed saw?
No. You can get your hands on a saw, however, yeah. But that was the easiest way for me. And I did... discover that I can play it, but the saw only had 6 notes on it, and that's because
they come with notes.
Well, I mean, the notes are there. Yeah. I mean, if you have a saw at home, it's a 2-in-1. It's both,
Well, you could only find 6 notes, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I could only find. Yeah,
no, but I'm kind of kidding. But so there were limitations with the way it was
because
built.
of the rust.
It was small.
That was because of the rust. Yeah, the rust takes away from the sound. So I went to the local hardware store and I was trying out all the different saws, looking for the ultimate sounding saw. And it was really funny because the owner of the store came to the aisle where I was, and he was furious, and he was yelling like, "Who's whistling in my store?" And I was like,
"You can't play that saw."
I was like, "No, I'm sorry, nobody's whistling. I'm just trying to play your saws." And he looked at me like I just fell down from Mars. But he realized I was about to purchase an expensive saw, so he was cool with it.
Yeah, whistle all you want, kid. Yeah,
and true enough, no rust. The saw had a whole octave on it. But the thing with the saw is the longer the blade, the more notes it would have. So over the years, I collected about 20 different saws, searching for more notes, essentially. And also the quality of the sound varies. Less expensive saws are made of lesser quality metal, thinner metal, so the sound is also thinner.
Right.
So
we're gonna have to bring your father in here for the expert, reason why. I mean, it has to do with the.
Well, the thickness and the shape, they all contribute. But the one thing which has to do with metallurgy that contributes is when you cut the saw out of a sheet of metal. What they do today is they want to save money. So they cut it on a diagonal so that in a rectangular piece of sheet metal, you can fit two saws. But what that does is it cuts against the grain of the sheet metal. So the grains in the saw end up going like the wrong way for music to resonate. And that is why old saws sound better, because they were cut one saw out of one sheet. And so the alignment of the makeup of the sheet is straight with the saw.
Are you ever booked for private recitals or for recitals, or are you ever booked? And
Of
how
course.
would somebody book you?
The easiest way is to go to my website, sawlady.com.
Oh,
That wasn't
that's
taken.
terrific.
Oh, my
Yeah,
God.
sawlady.com.
Nobody was sitting on that.
And so you go to people's homes, and have you done that? Have you
I
contacted?
have,
Yeah.
yes. A lot of
And
times.
do you would you have a sawchestra? I mean, a bunch of saw.
We did actually. You know, I run the New York City Musical Saw Festival.
Oh, you do.
You think you weren't going to get an answer to that question?
Hey, Malachi, what rock do you live underneath? You didn't know that. Come on.
Malachi.
You got to get out
Come on,
more.
you got to
often.
get up to speed. All right, yeah.
We're now in our 12th year. When I started, there were only 4 other saw players beside myself.
Yeah.
But last year, we had 60. And 60. And what we do is, of course, we all play solos and duets and quartets, but at the end, we all play together. Now, you can imagine 60 saw players together. The sound is it's like a wall of sound. The vibrations are so strong. It's not necessarily a pretty sound, but it's a wild sound.
So you have no sawdust.
That's the one. No sawdust. All right, but
It would be, and what? Do you have a collection of saw jokes?
Yes, as a matter of fact, on my Facebook page,
Yes.
there is a note
Yeah.
with all the jokes that people have made up about the soul.
And of course, the inevitable. What's the inevitable
I saw
absolute
you.
certainty? Huh?
I saw you.
I saw you.
I-
Okay.
yeah.
So they'll
I-
say that.
yeah.
Yeah.
what was? Don't you have a couple of records, CD names with that pun on saw, or at least work it into the title?
Yes, my
she's
CD
pulling
is
it out.
I Saw the Future.
Saw the future. Nice.
Very good.
You get it?
Very good. Yeah.
Right.
So I
So
saw
listen,
you.
having said that, why don't we just get into another tune and
Sure. I'd like to play this tune by Scott Munson.
who is that?
He's a composer who wrote lots of music for
you know
the
this man?
musical Saw, for many movie soundtracks, and he happens to be my husband. So
Nepotism.
this piece is from Richard Gere's movie Time Out of Mind. There is a scene there. Richard Gere plays a homeless man, and you see him wandering through Grand Central Station, and this is what you hear.
Lovely.
Finished on a high note,
you.
too. That has some range, that instrument.
Listen, how do you pick the subways where to perform, and do you need permits? How does this whole busking thing work?
Well, you don't need permits because we're very fortunate here in New York City to have the freedom of expression right. So you can just go and pick up a spot wherever and play, but you have to make sure that you're not blocking the way. And also...
There's turf, right? A little bit of a turf thing.
Yeah, right.
There is. There are more and more buskers today, so it's getting more and more difficult to find an empty spot. We are very fortunate in New York that we have Music Under New York, which is a division of the MTA, and they actually schedule musicians in 28 different spots. And it's very beneficial for the musician because you have a spot reserved for you. So when you get there, if somebody else is there, they have to vacate.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have to audition for that to
You
qualify?
do. You do, and it's...
And who are the judges, or how does that work?
The judges are people from...
Hardware store owners.
No, they're people from the music industry, as well as MTA personnel. The auditions are very difficult. You know, people think that to play in the subway, you don't have to be so good. No, every year between 200 and 300 people audition. And only 28 get chosen at the end. So it's a process. And
I've been to one of those auditions. You have people. I mean, there's a kora player from like Senegal. I'm messing that up.
The variety is amazing.
Really offbeat, different types of. You'll have a Delta blues guy. You'll
That's
have
right.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, because we are playing in public space, so you cater to everybody's tastes. You don't expect that everybody will like one thing. So that's why the great variety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were you picked as one of the 28?
Yes, of course.
Of course, John. Are you kidding me?
I'm so sorry for asking.
Rhetorical.
Where have you been, John?
But let me say, okay, so that's fine. So that's fine. So you get this. So it's this regimented way of getting a spot. But if you don't have that, talk about a little. Like when you first were breaking in, I mean, were there? This is my spot, and sometimes you hear about that. You get some confrontations, and is there a code and etiquette about playing the good spots?
The busking community is actually like one big family, and we know one another because we see one another every day. And there is a code of respect. If you come to a spot and a busker is there, you don't set up on the busker, meaning you don't set up your gear like, too nearby. You don't try to outloud them. But every once in a while, usually it is somebody who's new to busking and they just don't know, they would try to outloud the busker in order to get them out of their spot. But fortunately, it doesn't happen too often. And mostly buskers are very kind, not just here in New York City, but worldwide. For example, I went to Paris and I was busking up on Montmartre. And all of a sudden, this guy comes to me and he said, I was busking around the corner. I'm done now. That's a better spot. You might want it. That was really nice.
Right. Yeah, but he was done. Well, yeah. But what was the story about? I'm not cynical. Yeah. So what was the story outside? Was this in Italy? So you've busked around the world. I mean, tell the story. Wasn't there an Italian thing where the priest had to come out and adjudicate? And
everywhere I go, I always make a point of also busking because I find that it is
business expense. Because it's a business trip. Is that why?
No. Because I find that it is the quickest way to get to know a new place. Because if you're a tourist, who do you get to talk to? The waiter at the restaurant or the person at the hotel? But as a busker, you start playing, everybody wants to talk to you. All the locals come and talk to you. So you forge connections very quickly. And so when I was in Italy, in Florence, I went out to busk. I found a nice spot right outside a church in a big piazza. And so I started to play, and this gypsy woman came by to me and she said to me, this is my spot. Can you go away? This is my spot. So I said to her, what do you mean your spot? Did you buy it? And I said, isn't it first come, first serve? Whoever gets the spot first. But she was like, no.
Unless you're a gypsy.
I was like, no, this is my spot. You can't be here. I'm going to go and complain to the priest if you don't go away. So I was like, okay, go and complain. I kept playing. the priest came out and he. Oh, it was really funny because it just happened that I was playing Ave Maria as he came out. I didn't plan it; it just happened, but that was in my favor. And so he apologized to me and he explained that yes, this lady does stand there and beg every day. Would I mind crossing the street and going to the other sidewalk? So I said, yeah, of course, I'll go. So I crossed the street, but what happened was all the people who were listening to me, they crossed with me, and so as I was playing, new people they would see me from the other side of the street, so they would cross to me, and so this lady, the gypsy lady, was left with no pedestrian traffic next to her. So she crossed the street to me, and she was like, "Oh, you're taking all my people," and I was like, "Well, I moved for you. That's it. You wanted to be there. That's it. I moved for you. I'm not moving again." And she kept coming back to me, like time and again, trying to get me to go away. And I persevered. I was like, "No, I already moved once. That's it." So I'm playing, and she crosses the street once again. I was thinking, oh God, not again. But this time she came to me. She extended her hand to shake my hand, and she said to me, "You're okay. You can come here whenever you want." Why? Because I proved to her that I know what I'm doing, that I'm not a newbie to working the streets. That I basically, she gained respect for me, and she accepted me. And she said, "You can come here every day. You're fine."
Wow.
Roma. Right?
See, I heard another version of that story. I heard you were playing like a Black Sabbath tune, and all of a sudden the priest comes out, and you switch to Ave Maria, and all of a sudden the priest
Well, we want to get at least one more song, because then we want to cover up. We're going to be off in about 10 minutes, and I want to recap where you can see and hear Malachi McCourt and also Saw Lady.
Yeah.
But what song do you have lined up for us now?
I saw her standing there.
And where can people see you now? Which subway? Where are you now playing?
My three favorite spots are Times Square, Union Square, and Herald Square.
But where in those?
I'm-
Those are huge
How about
stages.
Columbus Circle? Throw that in.
I used to play there, but it's gotten too noisy.
Yeah.
I'm always on the mezzanine, so not on the platform. It's less noisy on the mezzanine.
the
Basically,
trains
where
come
there is the most foot traffic, like Herald Square, I'm opposite the turnstiles that lead to Macy's, where the escalator is. Times Square, I'm where the escalator is, right opposite the shuttle to Grand Central Station, right next to the store there. And Union Square, it's on the mezzanine where the elevators are to the N&R, and there are benches there, and the police station is right across.
Right. I mean, if she's playing, you kind of can't
can
miss
hear
her.
it.
You can hear it. It goes through.
And don't make noise with change. The rustle of bills is very nice, And screw that change. But keep that for
As a courtesy to
for
the
your
artist
for your taxes.
right.
Bills will be fine.
So
You don't have a credit card taker yet, do you? No.
I don't. I did try, to have a QR code where people could scan it and then give donations through PayPal, but it didn't seem to work too well, so I don't bother anymore.
Right.
But I do want to say that, a lot of people, they take pictures or videos as they see me in the subway.
You must be all over YouTube. Forget it.
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't know unless they tag me. So what I would like to ask the audience, if you take a picture of a busker, if you get the busker's card and then either email or tweet or Facebook your picture to the busker, you would make their day. I mean, money tips are great and greatly appreciated, of course, but money is spent and then it's gone. But if you send a picture, we will probably keep it forever.
Okay.